Hey Daily Dosers, my name is Gordon Nixon. I work with the junior hires at our Vista campus, and today we're continuing on through this series in Joseph. And I was reading through this series in Joseph, it struck me that time and time again, this guy, he cannot catch a break. You look at the story of Joseph and you go, betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery by his own family. He ends up getting accused of a crime that he never commits. He ends up in prison and a guy promises him, hey, I'm gonna put in a good word for you with the Pharaoh. And then he gets forgotten about for 2 more years. And you reach the end of this story of Joseph, and I'm sitting here reading it and I'm thinking it would make sense for this guy to get to the end of his life and he can never catch a break, nothing never seems to go right for him. But one thing, time and time again, God shows up for him. God moves. And it would make sense though at the end of this life for him to go, God, you alone showed up for me, and to be bitter at the people around him, to be hurt, to just be just focused on this pain and how nothing ever seemed to break right for him and people constantly betrayed him. And what we get to the end of the story of Joseph, and we see a guy that just truly lives out what true biblical forgiveness looks like. He looks at the people around him and he says, because of God, here's forgiveness. And I think for us, forgiveness is this word that we hear all the time at church. It has become common, it has become routine, and we go, I know that I'm supposed to forgive. And yet it's one thing to say you forgive somebody, and I think it's actually truly rare to go, I mean it in my heart, and I mean it with my actions. It's easy to say, yes, I forgive you, and yet every time we see that person, every time that situation gets brought up in our mind, we're reminded of that hurt, we're reminded of that pain, we're reminded of that situation. Probably as I'm talking through this, I know I could think of it, and I bet you can. You can think of people in your life that you go, you don't know what they did to me. You don't know what they said about me. You don't know how many times I've tried to forgive them, and constantly over and over and over again, they just hurt me again. And you get to the end of the story of Joseph, and Joseph chapter 50, or Genesis chapter 50, verse 19. Joseph is face to face with his brothers, the guys that sold him into slavery, his very family that said, no, we don't like you, we're done with you, sell you into slavery. And he says this to them in verse 19 of chapter 50. Joseph said to them, do not fear, for am I in the place of God? As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today. So do not fear, I will provide for you and your little ones. Thus he comforted them and spoke kindly to them. Joseph looks at his brothers and he says, I forgive you. He says, I know what you did. I didn't forget that, but I forgive you. I'm choosing to be kind to you. And there's a key that I want us to pick up on here. He says, I know what you did and I know that you meant it for evil, but I choose to forgive because I know what God did for me. I know what God did for me. For us, the key to forgiveness, I think, for myself included, is instead of focusing on what others did to you or to us, to focus on what God has done for us. In that moment, we simply have to step back and say, I forgive. And God, I'm going to let you be God. I'm going to let you be in charge and you be in control. I think sometimes we say it with our words that we forgive, and yet we grip to that pain, to that hurt, to that situation, and we refuse to let it go. Instead of gripping to that and remaining in control, surrender that and say, God, here it is. God, on my own power, I can't get over this. God, on my own power, I can't get past this hurt. God, this is where you need to step in and you need to be God. I need to focus on what you have done for me. As we finish, Romans chapter 12, verse 17 says this, repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, and I will repay, says the Lord. Now, the part here isn't to get caught on the fact that it says that God might get vengeance, but simply to allow, it says, for God to be God. Surrender that to him and say, God, this is yours. And that's where freedom is found in forgiveness, is in the fact if you go, God, it's no longer on my shoulders to take care of this. God, it's no longer mine to be mad about. God, it's no longer mine to be hurt about. God, this is yours. In the same way that God looks at us and says, I know your mistakes. I know the pain that you've caused. I know the things that you've done, but I forgive you. We have the ability as well to say, God, you're in control. God, you're in charge. Here it is. Here's my pain. Here's my hurt. God, you take care of it. And that's where freedom is found in forgiveness. So for you, the encouragement today is I hope that you can think through those situations, that pain you might be carrying, and say, God, this is yours. God, you have to deal with this. God, take this from me because I can't do it anymore. And then you can walk in that freedom of going, God is God, and you don't have to worry about it. I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time.